Not only is networking set up for you almost automatically when you create your virtual machines and workstation, but you also have the ability to make whatever changes you want to the network configuration. So you're not stuck with this default configuration. So what's going to happen here when you open the new machine, the new virtual machine wizard, and you set up a machine, it is going to be set up to run NAT for the virtual machine. And I'll show you later when we talk about adding adapters and so forth. Your virtual machine, you can run ipconfig at the command prompt and you can see your IP address. If you go open another virtual machine, you'll see the same subnet IP address there, and it's just going to run NAT between that and your host operating system's IP address and connect you to the outside world. Now you can change every bit of that, and there's two ways you can go about changing things. You can make changes to the network on each individual virtual machine. You can add network adapters, you can take away network adapters, you can make changes to the settings on those adapters, you can take one virtual machine, put it on a different subnet, you can do all kind of cool things. Next, you can change the network switches, if you will, or the underlying network types on every virtual machine on the host system, and you do that using the virtual network editor. And I'm going to jump out there and show you the virtual network editor in just a second. Now with the virtual network editor, you can change network settings, you can add and remove virtual networks, you can create your own custom virtual network configurations, you can do a lot of stuff out there. Now here's a big note, make sure you hear me on this, okay? When we get out there into the virtual network editor, you're going to see this restore default button. That thing should be flashing red, and it should even maybe shock you just a little bit when you hit it or when you mouse over it, because this thing can be dangerous. If you ever, kind of go along with the temptation to click the restore default button, it will cause all network settings that have been made since the installation of Workstation 8 to be permanently lost. Now, that can erase a lot of confusing work. And for those of you network admins out there, once you get it working right, you don't want anybody to mess with any aspect of it, because in some instances there's just been a lot of hours put in and a lot of confusion has been shuffled out to get everything working. Performing a restore default when a virtual machine is powered on can cause serious damage even to bridged networking. So the bottom line is, be very careful with that restore default button. So let's jump out into Workstation, and I want to show you some of this. So here we are in VMware Workstation 8, and I just want to show you that if I go to edit, now we've been going to the virtual machine choice on all of this stuff, and notice if I go into settings here, I can see my network adapter, and I can see that I'm running NAT, and then I can change it for this individual machine if I would like, okay? And so I can do whatever I would like, and I can set it on LAN segments or whatever. I'm going to leave it on NAT and just cancel this. So that's for the individual machine, and obviously I can do it on all of my individual machines. But if I go to Edit and Virtual Network Editor, this opens up a little world for me. Notice there are the three networks that were created for me. There's bridged, and notice it's auto bridged. And if you'll look at this, you can see I can go change the automatic settings. If I would like, I can choose host only, and notice with a host only, it's connecting a host virtual adapter to this network. There's the name of it, and I can use local DHCP service. And if I click this, I can go change my DHCP settings, but notice it is for this host only network right here, okay? And it is automatically set up here. Notice my start IP address 192.168.163.128 through 254. And I even have my default lease times and maximum lease times here. Then if I go down to my NAT network switch, which is what I'm actually using, you can see I'm connected to it. Notice I'm connected to both of these. We will come back to that and talk about that later. But when I click on NAT down here, you'll notice the only thing that's changed, this has changed, and I can go work on my NAT settings, and notice I can even set up port forwarding in here if I would like. Okay, so if you know what that is, go with it. Notice under advanced I can allow active FTP, I can set ports, I can set DNS settings, I can set NetBIOS settings. So there's a lot of things I can do in here. Notice in this one the DHCP is set up on a different subnet IP. Notice 192.168.174, and So there's a lot of things that I can do out here. Notice if I click on the NAT network and go to DHCP settings, I can set my start addresses and my end addresses and my leases and so forth there. So what I want you to notice is, notice my subnet IP and my subnet mask. Notice these change between the various networks. And of course on Bridge I don't have that because I'm getting it somewhere else. So there's a lot that can go on. Now this is the dreaded restore default button that I was telling you about. Be very careful with this guy. Stay away from it unless you absolutely know that you need to be hitting it. Then also notice I can add a network here if I would like, and I can call it VMnet2 or VMnet3.9. It'll give me the available ones. Click OK, and it is assigning a subnet IP, and there's V2. It's host only. Notice it chose 176. I can go change that if I would like. And then, of course, I can remove that network, no problem. Now, if I add a network there, it's available to everybody and they can use it. So this gives you an idea of the number of little Lego type parts that you have in networking. You can do some really intricate network construction and testing with your virtual machines. Again, I keep saying this, but again, as long as I've got enough RAM on my host system, I can open up quite a few virtual machines and test almost any network situation I'd like to test. So anyway, that's what the virtual network editor looks like. It gives you an idea of how you can move around out there.